this one might get some editing more so than other ones.
Yeah.
Just because, we're just running loose with it.
Yeah. Can we?
Brian's not here. Immediately from Alex, this will require some heavy
Yeah.
editing.
It's like 3 of us here, but edit out every time I talk, and it's just the 2 of you guys talking. It's just like, why was Uyong on?
What do you think, Young? It's like,
Interesting. Yeah. But I am excited to be here. Finally made it to the big boys.
Oh,
wait, is this the first time you've been on?
Yeah.
Weird. For some reason, I thought he's been on.
it's because I've been here.
No.
It's really easy to get us mixed up. Kieran, I forgive you.
That's not it. No, it must be the gameplay videos and stuff.
Oh,
that Ian does.
sure.
Good out, Karen.
So, Taipei, right? No, it's but this one, I feel like this one I was like kind of quite hyped to see because High Seas Limited, like when we were playing in Dev, I feel towards the end we were like, this is like really good.
A masterpiece.
This is a crown jewel.
Even to this day, I still miss coming into work and playing High Seas Limited.
What a nerd.
Yeah.
we can edit out talking there, right? Okay, cool, sweet. Just checking. But it lent itself as like some really cool gameplay stuff, right?
I know we always say this set is the best draft set, but like this set actually.
Yeah.
I feel that's kind of Carol's line, But we don't have Carol here today. Carol's always like, "Oh, it's the best set ever for everyone." But like when we say it,
It's true.
it's genuine.
Yeah.
It's not just Carol propaganda.
Yeah.
I feel to remember like that Carol enjoyed it so much that he was left speechless. So he lost his voice and he couldn't be on today to talk. So that's why he is not
I
here.
thought he was just yelling at the screen when Brian said "stupid, sexy Scurv."
Oh yeah, like I don't want to call out Brian, but I feel like he's occasionally prone to just use pretty liberally saying like, as we say in the dev room, or like when Scurv came up and I was watching and he's like, stupid, sexy Scurv, as we said in the dev room. I'm like, wait, did we? And I feel I messaged some of you guys. I'm like, I don't really remember that, but sure, Brian, whatever you need.
Maybe it's his other dev room,
Oh, like his other friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if he has a second dev room next to us.
Or it's
Just
like-
keeps hidden from us.
It's like when your girlfriend's like, "Oh, you must have said it to your other girlfriend."
yeah,
Just like that.
I wonder, like, maybe there isn't a separate, and they actually do most of the work, and then like, and then like we give feedback, and Brian's like, yeah, that's really interesting.
That's good job, guys.
yeah, like,
With crayons, and we're just like,
because I feel Brian's very diplomatic, right? When you're talking to Brian, like, I have a lot of dumb ideas, and I like laying it out, and he's like, I mean, that's interesting. That's perhaps something we could look into.
Yeah.
Then he goes straight to his other dev team, and he's like, oh my god, let me tell you what Kieran said.
"Hello to this idiot."
But anyway, High Seas.
Oh yes, High Seas.
Where am I? What are we talking about?
What year is it?
But I feel we got to see some of those like real cool highlight blowout plays that happen in Dev. And one of the first was like talking about Scurv. One of the funniest ones I had to say was like I think it was a world premiere as well, right?
Yeah.
And there's Nova playing Scurv.
Yep.
And he passes with a card in hand playing against Mullen. And then the other guy's like thinking about it. It's like, oh, like maybe can I play around the specialization if he even knew about it? And then he cracks the first gold. Bam, like not so fast from Arsenal. And when he played it from Arsenal, I'm like, wait, hold up. He has 2 of them. The guy's like, oh, okay, cracks the second gold. Another not so fast. It's like,
And you're like, oh my god.
like
It's
sweet,
so-
okay, so I pass, skip my whole turn, you have 5 cards.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the sweetest things about watching a world premiere or like an early calling is like, it only happens the first couple of times, and then later on you're like, you kept a card in hand. I'm not popping my gold this turn.
Yeah, it might be one of those things that like later on you're sort of a little bit wise to. It's like, because it could have been something like a block card, but the funny thing is like you might play around the first one, but you're never playing around 2 of
There's
them.
no way.
No, there's just no way. But that's one of my favorite cards because it's one of the few cards where they're about to draw a card and you get to actually say, not so fast.
Yeah.
Not so fast.
Not so fast.
Yeah, I sort of saw him put the hand up, Like it was great. He kind of hold on. And the other one from the I think World Premiere was which is just this is the thing of like players learning the set on the fly, which we make mistakes in dev and stuff all the time as well.
Sure.
I mean, some of us do
Some
anyway.
of
But I saw Showman's game where he had the Palantir Aeronaut. So he's got like. So I think it's fair to say he was losing this game. I think he was like about to get fatigued or whatever. He's got 2 cogs down, drops the Palantir Aeronaut, and he's got Unicycle up. and like they show his opponent, I think Paul, they show his hand, and it's like, okay, so he blocks 2 cards, one of them gets blown up from the aeronaut, and then we move on, and Shoma might lose. But Shoma kind of have what Young sometimes has we call the protag buff, the protagonist, which Young has in Dev sometimes. Like he just wins these matches he's not meant to because he's the main character. He's got plot armor.
Because I'm a better player.
Yeah, yeah, sure, whatever. But anyway, so then like Shoma throws us down, and Paul's like looking at it, lines it up, and then like 1 card blocks. He's like, "Yep," and Shoma's like, "Okay, tap 2 cogs, unicycle, untap, blows it up," and then Paul's like, "Wait."
What?
Looks at the card and he's like, oh, GG, man. It was cool. Like, that's the cool thing about the World Premiere as well, having it before the calling.
Yeah.
I feel you get a bad beat or you make a mistake in World Premiere. It's just kind of like, it's all good. It's all fun. You move on to the next game.
Yeah, because there's just so much going on the set. Like, so many new mechanics, so many, like, interactions with Treasure Island that, like, brings in a whole new dynamic.
Yep.
So it's really exciting to see sort of, like, these very high professional players sort of pick it up on the spot, learn and adapt throughout that course of the tournament. So it was just really cool seeing all the plays that they were coming up with. Because
Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna say, because like even during the dev pipeline, I feel like, but me personally, I was like learning about the format even like many weeks into the format. I was just like learning and just figuring new interactions out, new strategies out.
Yeah, you're a notoriously slow learner. So, yeah.
No, it's true though. Like all of us, like I feel that some of us are very good at draft, but even by the end, even the best drafters were like learning new things, and that just shows the depth of the format. And very excited for where people end up for Nats.
And of course, we got to give a shout out to the champ, literally conquering the high seas. Evan Tongi, I believe, that's how you said, like what a textbook finish, dropping the conquer of the high seas into the Swabby, swing for 7. The Swabby that Yarp actually passed up at some point during that draft as well. But like that was just such an epic finish, like manipulating the goal to finish off that game. And yeah, big shout out to Shannon too, who's repping Marlin, I think, for a lot that weekend.
Yeah.
Put up a really good fight, but just, the captain, Gravy Bones, got there in the end. And also the winner of the Battle Hardened, Spencer Horden, otherwise known as
Boosting Spin Dog.
Boosting Spin Dog. Taking that, and I'm pretty sure I saw he opens a gold baited hook as well.
Sicko.
What a sick legendary just to like crack over to a first battle hard and like epic. So, shout out to the champs of those events as well. Yeah, it was really cool seeing some of like the fantastic sealed games on day one and people playing some of the archetypes that we'd also played in Dev. But I really enjoyed seeing the drafts. We followed the players. I think we had like Alexander, Yuki, and Yup across the 3. And just watching them as they go along. And man, one thing I thought is players are just like so good now. Like they're drafting, and I was like, man, like that's like week 4 Young drafting, or like week 2 me and you drafting.
Yeah, we definitely didn't punt any drafts.
Yeah, but just seeing some of the calculus and the decisions going through and the different archetypes you can play, like I was actually very impressed with Yuki's like draft. Didn't actually go that well. I think it's fair to say. Some of the we saw when they showed the table, there were like multiple gravies around the table, but just managing to salvage a 2-1 out of that with like 2 allies, just really, really impressive. Just going like that more big damage, low ally count.
I think that's I'm sure Uyon can speak more on this, but you two were the like prime gravy drafters, and there's definitely some skewed signals, one could say.
Yeah, can
if
happen.
you're not super experienced in the format, and that's probably why it ended up that way. But yeah, it's definitely an experience thing, but people were drafting a lot better than I was expecting.
For sure.
Especially for such a complex set.
Yeah, I remember early days of that draft, I was just like, oh, an ally. That's a signal. And just being like, oh, I'm in the gravy.
It's only
This
like
is a great time.
I feel some of our early decks as well, like someone ended up with like 10 allies, and it's like, well, I can't block.
Yeah, swing 7 at face, and you're like,
Yep.
guess I die.
Puff in turn 1 is just like pump attack you for 9, block 1 card, take 6. But seeing that first game as well, the gravy mirror with Yuki just trying to almost hide the fact as well that you don't have that many allies, and eventually going down. But it reminded me of one of my games against Carol where he actually played a draft. I think he had 1 ally in his whole deck. And I had like a pretty good gravy deck with like 4 or 5 allies, but I was trying to play the whole like, preserve the ally and like card advantage and stuff. And then by the time I realized what he was doing, I was already like half dead. And I'm like, I gotta switch strategy. And I was like, it's too late. All my allies.
The ships are just coming in.
My allies, they're stuck in the ocean. I can't get them out. But seeing that was really cool, and just seeing people having to make the really difficult decisions on whether do I take the blue here, do I take the power card, am I meant to pass an ally?
Yeah.
I think we were talking about Yarp at one point taking an ally over an equipment piece, and then later on choosing to pass up the swabby to fill out the equipment suite. And I mean, really tough call at the moment, but one of those things where you kind of wish you'd maybe taken that equipment to get one of those really powerful allies.
Because it's so interesting, because like that equipment was so important to be able to like have that one equipment block to like deny, for example, Treasure Island or like a crucial point. But just like a 7 power swabby, I was like, that's such a disciplined pick to like not take swabby there. Make sure you get that equipment block on the legs. And I was like, some high level discipline choices. Because
equipment's so important in the set as well. Yep. It's just like your way to help manipulate Treasure Island as well, stop these important breakpoints.
Yeah.
And speaking of Treasure Islands, like that's one of the things I'm going to be most interested to watch as this draft format, limited format develops, how people interact. I think we saw quite a wide range of it. I feel in a couple of early World Premiere games, they did a little bit like we did, where it's just like never let it pop. You see this Treasure Island like stacking up to like 6, 7, 8 counters, and it felt like sometimes it's just contextual, but it felt to me a little bit as the event went on, people were starting to just sort of adjust their strategy towards Treasure Island management, like maybe giving you a counter rather than letting it build up to 6 and they get 6 gold.
Yep. And I think it is like one of the most skillful things that you can manage in a draft game of high seas. I have definitely had games where I have fatigued an opponent and the Treasure Island's been on 11.
Yep.
And they have no cards left in deck, and like
yeah, if you're looking at me, bro.
It wasn't you. But yeah, I think by the end it was very correct to like sometimes let them have 1, sometimes let them have 3, and it's just like you really need to like gauge it very well. And you need to know exactly what your decomposition is and like when your swing back turn is and all that sort of stuff. I think it's just like one of the most interesting draft sets.
Yeah, because there's also an interesting thing of like blocking out to deny them was getting gold off Treasure Island. But if you also draft in a particular way, so if you like prioritize the mutinies and things like that, you can actually allow them to have the gold so that you can steal it and then deny gold and sort of those other avenues. So I just feel like there's so many fascinating ways to engage with that, and it all comes down to how you draft and how you play the turn cycles. So
yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the mutinies, because I think those cards are kind of sneaky really good. And some of them, I feel like the Go Again one in particular can be really strong. And a format where sometimes you can find yourself action point constricted with like a number of cards in hand. But it was interesting because I feel early watching some of the drafts, they weren't maybe being taken that highly. And then I can't remember whose draft it was. It might have been Yarp's even, or maybe Alexander's, where I saw it taken pick 1, pack 1. And it's just like kind of nice, like leaves you open. You can still play all 3 heroes, and mutinies are one of like the really good ways to manipulate Treasure Island. And because I just want to speak to my own experience here, I feel like drafting in high seas, I feel initially Treasure Island is something that I at times expressed mild displeasure.
Mild,
just mild.
Just I said, oh gosh, that didn't work out that well that game. But it's one of those things that I feel over time, just like talking to some of the people who'd been a bit more successful in draft, like, you know, your Carols, I feel like you were doing quite well as well in high seas development, and just saying,
and
like,
me,
and
and me, guys,
and Andrew Young, whatever. But just asking, like, what is your strategy towards Treasure Island, and like, how do you try and manipulate this? And some of you guys are saying the mutinies are very, very important. We take these very early. We're happy to take multiple copies, and that's one way where you give up the gold, particularly into non-gravy heroes, because gravy is a hero that can manipulate those against mutinies, being able to use a hero ability at instant speed. But Puffin and Marlin, if they're stuck with a gold, like, it's not going anywhere. And I'm interested to see how the really good players, how that influences their like pick order for things like these mutinies, and how they address like the Treasure Island dilemma.
It's such a multifaceted solution to the problem, right? Because like you can combine the mutinies with a high amount of 3 blocks and 4 blocks, and also equipment suite to like very much manipulate the gold disparity between you and your opponent, and also the sloops that, you know. Like everything in this set is like so delicately balanced, I feel, and it's just like that's what makes it such an interesting format.
It's really cool, even down to some of the lower life matters cards, things like Scar for a Scar, Life for a Life, Blow for a Blow. Blow for a Blow, we saw, I think, unfortunately for Yuki, take it down, like hitting an ally and going face. But that's another cool thing. I feel like players were rating things like the Scar and Life for Life very highly because, again, action points aren't always easy to come by in the set. But again, a really interesting dynamic with Treasure Island because sometimes you have to make the decision, am I going to take some damage, give them the gold off Treasure Island in order to turn on the Scar or Life for Life? What is more important here? It's just, I feel it's just so many important decisions. And one thing Brian said over the course of the weekend, like everything has an on-hit in the set because everything can threaten Treasure Island. So just like really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, and also Scurv kind of like coming out the gates, really rocking it with a very high conversion rate. So that was kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, the Scurvs were crushing it in sealed. I think there were there were a couple of them up in the 7.
2 7-0s were both Scurv.
Really?
Yeah.
They were just like drinking rum and just going face.
Yep. Stupid sexy Scurv, as we say in Dev.
All the time.
But anyways, talking of Pisces Limited, I feel for people who watched and want to get out there and play, we got all the pre-releases coming up next weekend.
Yes.
Producer Alex, how many we got around the world? Hundreds? Thousands? Tens of thousands?
You've put me on the spot here. I don't think I have that statistic.
But I mean,
at least 5.
But I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of them around the world. Basically, head up your local game store. I'm sure there's going to be a pre-release near you. And I mean, I'm definitely going to go to a pre-release.
I'm going to go on Friday to Card Merchant with City.
Okay.
And you? I'm going to put you on the spot now.
I'll come with you, surely.
Let's go.
But it's like, 'cause I feel like sometimes we play Fab all day at work, right? And sometimes you're not always as hyped to like go out on your own time and play. But I feel High Seas Limited, one of these ones that I can't get enough of. I'm like, let's get back into it. Let's play some more.
That is actually true. Like, that is probably the one set where we were like, after it ended, we were just so sad. And we're always like, we wish we could play more High Seas Limited.
Yeah, we're like hitting up Chris and Brian, like, oh, you guys, you want to do any like final balance checks? You know, High Seas Limited, maybe get a couple more drafts in. Yeah, so get out there, play your pre-releases because it's going to be really good practice as well for national season coming up. And I'm really hyped to see what the impact of some of these heroes is going to be because, you know, I know you've played quite a lot of Gravy. You're one of the top 2 Gravy players. At least they can best.
Yes.
But what I'm interested to hear your thoughts on how Gravy might attack some of the stronger heroes we've seen so far coming out of ProQuest season. And I think the hero of the moment has got to be Florian, right? Just absolutely went on a tear through the second half of the Road to National season.
Yeah.
Particularly once we saw things like, Enigma and then Aurora sort of ascend into Living Legend.
Yeah.
It seemed to be the deck to beat. Do you feel like Gravy plays the game in such a way that it's able to really contest that style of strategy that we've seen?
Yeah, I think sort of in the current metagame, there's a bit of a bit of a power vacuum and a bit of a slot to fill with sort of a board presence deck. They can really punish the slower, dirtily decks. And just being able to flood the board with allies, pressure your opponent to have enough attacks to be able to clear them, and sort of challenge them in a way that other heroes don't challenge the meta. I think it's quite fascinating. It's going to be really interesting to see sort of how the early Gravy decks look, sort of their main game plans, and also how the early decks, how the other decks also try to tackle that Gravy threat, because they're going to really shake things up, I think.
Yeah, it's like, are you going to dedicate some sideboard slots to it or just deal with it? Because playing that matchup sometimes on the Florian side, it, like, not quite the same, but it sort of gives shades of me just losing to Jason on Enigma here. They're establishing this board presence, and you're a deck where again you don't have like a ton to go again. You have like your swarming Gloom Veils, you can run your Rune Rager swarms, but sometimes you find yourself facing down 2 or 3 allies, and it's like Reaping Blade kill 1. It's like sweet as bro. Let's
it's like cool. There's 2 more allies. Let's keep going.
These guys can't catch a break. Hey, one board present deck leaves and another one comes right along.
But I think Gravy sort of poses that sort of board presence like deck in an interesting manner, in the sense that the deck is so heavily go again action point constrained. So I'm really fascinated to see sort of how these early decks develop, to see which sort of direction they take Gravy. Like, do they really want to go ally heavy, really abuse that mechanic of like flooding the board with allies and forcing your opponents to engage with them? But I think is once you sort of reach a certain threshold, I feel like opponents can abuse the fact that your deck is so heavy on allies and the fact that you have so little block, and maybe they adapt by just slamming everything face. There's nothing worse than having 3 allies on board, having like 3 no blocks in hand, and everything is coming face, and you're like, oh, guess I'm dying.
Yeah, and if it rises up, like, does that open the door to decks like Cinder, for example, which maybe just want to farm your allies and
Yep.
get those Mask of Momentum triggers?
Yep, Mask of Momentum's just like farms your allies like no tomorrow.
True.
It is
Whirling
terrifying.
Mist Blossom. Let's go.
Yeah, yep.
Okay, yeah.
So many games I've played in Dev where I'm just like versing an IRA and just like, cool, I think I've got this. And they just go, Whirling Mist Blossom into an ally, kill an ally, draw 2. And I go, oh, okay, cool, nice.
Second Whirling Mist Blossom.
Second Whirling Mist Blossom, draw 2, Mask trigger, draw another one. And you're like, nice. All right, I'm done.
Yeah, so
Get me out.
yeah, it's gonna be kind of cool to see how some of these decks here like Gravy can contest and things like Florian, and also decks out there, Azalea, Anu, some of the ones that have been doing quite well recently.
Yeah.
But speaking of Azalea, there's also another ranger on the scene, Marlin, and man, seeing what Marlin can do in Limited reminded me of like what it can do in Constructed as well at times.
Yeah.
Like when you start rolling off those like giant harpoons as well,
Yeah.
with the big game trophy shots, like you're just coming in for like 15 overpower.
Yeah. I
Like-
feel like the Harpoon Marlin is really overshadowed by the Death Dealer one right now. I think everyone's trying to break the multiple arrows, rain razors, go again. But I think like the Harpoon, although it looks a little bit underrated, paying 4 to get +4 is kind of whatever. But like those Harpoons are really good, and like disrupting your opponent just very strong. She's kind of like a pseudo guardian in that sense.
Yeah, and you see I'm kind of glad you mentioned the Death Dealer because there are a number of possible ways that you could build Marlin. Yeah, and I've seen some of the similar stuff, like I dealt like 200 damage and stuff like that, and et cetera. And, it'd be interesting to see people put their money where their mouth is with some of these Death Dealer combo Marlin builds.
For sure.
To see, traditionally you could say some of the combo decks can be a little bit more fragile to disruption at times. We have seen decks like Slippy out there. Of course, Nu still around. I mean, even Azalea, Red in the Ledger kind of ruins your day a lot of the time into that. So seeing with people sort of really commit hard to that Death Dealer, or if some people want to explore a more Harpoon-centric build, maybe a little bit more value play things like your Conqueror of the High Seas, like, what a card.
I'm strictly no Conqueror in my
Yeah. Yeah, Carol's not it, because Carol's a bit of a Conqueror in Marlin.
Yeah. I'm like Conqueror. How can you not run a 8 go again, destroy Arsenal, create a gold in your deck, One
of my favorite moments when like, Carol's playing Jason Smiley, he's like, oh, it's not quite working out. He's, because it was, I think the build with like some Conquerors and D-Reacts, that kind of thing. And then Jason's playing his build where he cut them all out. Carol's like, I'm just going to make a few changes, like, whips out all Jason's cards, all the Conquerors back in and stuff.
No.
Immediately challenges Jason, wins. So he's like, I told you.
You haven't experienced the 3 of a kind draw 2 ships.
Just draw better, and then you're all.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, my bad.
I was gonna make a joke about being like, then you're all gravy, but then I couldn't quite link it in.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a reason why it's his first Dev Talk.
Yeah. Probably not coming back.
Just leave the jokes to the professionals, right?
Can we cut that out? Can we cut that out?
No. Leave it.
But the last one, of course, I want to talk about is Marlin. Oh my god, I just said Marlin.
Puffin.
It's Puffin.
Yeah.
And again, seeing the different ways people explore this, because I think when people see Mechanologist, there's always, like, obviously you do have that boost strategy available to you if you want to play like your 0 to 60 super hits.
Yeah.
These cards that are sort of in a way above rate, but put some deck building constrictions on you. And you fatigue a bit faster, you kind of constricted a bit more to mech cards, but you deal a lot of damage.
Yes.
So seeing people go down that route, or again, one of the decks close to my heart is the more like pirate based the pirate Puffin deck where you're running, where you're playing more of like maybe a value game plan. You're really leaning into like your cog based stuff. You get the Conqueror of the High Seas.
You get pummels.
You get pummels if you want to play those. You know what I'm talking about. So it's just cool. I feel there's like multiple ways to build these decks, and sometimes, like we say, we test a lot in dev, but by the time the stuff's out there in the real world, within like 1-2 weeks, they've played like way more games than we can ever possibly play during our development pipeline.
I just feel that it's at least a positive thing that, like, you want to play Mechanologist, you don't have to put boost cards in your deck anymore.
Yep.
You actually have enough strong cards that you can forego the boost cards and just play a very value-centric game plan. Kind of like the old Pistol Dash kind of game plan, Chamber Purifier, but like even more like centered around like the game plan rather than kind of going full defensive and just playing every card that's like full value.
Yep.
I think that's quite interesting and presents a good problem for people to solve.
Yeah, because it does have sort of some shades of some of those old school Dash decks.
for
I mean,
sure.
like towards the end they ended up playing like a little bit more mid-range, I think, with some high octanes and boost cards and stuff like that as well. But they could like slide in and out of that package, and like I feel you can sort of mimic some of the spike turns that they were able to do with like you get the cogs down, you just start popping off with everything. But yeah, I do think that some of the high C heroes are going to make a bit of an impact, and I'm really excited to see how people build them, because this is one where we played it for a long time, played a lot of different builds, had a lot of internal debates around how to build these heroes, how to play them, and you know, a lot of games where Young's playing at like 4:30 into the day. One of our favorite things to do, you know, we're packing up and Young's still locked in a game, and there's just like, we're like, oh, let's just have like a bunch of us crowd around Young's game and watch it. And watch it, like, you know, poor Young, he's playing this like very like skill intensive hero.
6 hours of like full fatigue gravy games.
And he's like 40
so
minutes
tired.
into a game, and he's like approaching the end game, trying to do his pitch stack, you know. Then his opponent draws like a good card. We're like, oh, what the what? And we just do that over and over again, and Uyon's just like trying to be a good sport about it.
And you're just getting juiced and your plan's falling apart, and all the divs just like,
whoa. Then Uyon loses to back-to-back top decks. We're like, oh yeah, bro, we knew you sucked. See you tomorrow, bro.
Nah, it's you know, you guys all respect me though, so you know, this is all just jest. So I think I can take it on the chin. So it's always a good vibe.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Like, he thinks that's one of those ones where like we respect them and we're just, you know, busting his chops and get
we're just joking.
Yeah. Classic Young. But speaking of CC anyway, I guess we should maybe talk about a little bit about the recent ban list, because like pretty decent shakeup, right?
Yeah.
Scepter of Pain and Germinate both gone for Florian.
CYB.
And CYB.
For some of those people out there, finally gone.
Yeah, like I feel CYB was a very contentious card, you could say. There was definitely some people who like, you know, respected the game CYB. They're like, I understand what you're trying to do with this, and it's like, yeah, like you're playing this as part of the, I mean, and you know, including James who came down and said it's like, I think that's what a control deck should look like when Gregor's won Worlds on it. And there's a lot of merit to that, but at the same time, like personally I didn't love the card, even though like at heart I'm a bit of a fatigue control player, so you'd think I would, but I understand how, particularly if you go to like your local armory or like a ProQuest or something like that, and you're like, oh boy, I'm like real excited to play my rogue deck, can't wait. You sit down and the game starts, you're like, you know, you attack, they block 2 cards, they go pitch CYB, you're like, oh no. And then the game continues on for like 40 minutes, and eventually they attack, you block with your last 2 cards. You look down and like, you know, sometimes you like to pretend that you could have won the game. Because like, that's the thing about Fab, like you might have got your opponent down to 2, but like you were never going to win. Like they just took you a full last turn, you got them down to 2. But then, you know, you go tell your friends and you can like massage the truth a little bit. It's like, oh, it was a close game. Like, you know, I got him down to 2. When CIBs, sometimes that's not the case. It's like the game ends, they're on 37.
It's like Night at the Armory video. Oh, I got him down to 1. Like, that's the feeling that you want, but not with CYB, bro.
I got him down to 58. And you're like, oh god.
Night at the Armory reshoot day, and it's Pablo on CYB.
CYB Enigma.
It's crushing a new
I
flag.
attack with my Steel Blade Superior. Impossible. Anyway, CYB on 58. So I feel it was definitely one of those like love-hate cards for the Fab community. And I think as Brian mentioned in the article as well, like it did turn into a bit of a drain on like internal dev time. Like, and I don't know, like some people might just say, well, like, oh, that's your job, and it's like, yes, it is, but in a way, like there's only a certain number of hours assigned that that you have in a year or in a certain pipeline to go and test certain things. And I mean, the overall product, the overall game experience, you know, in theory can suffer if more and more time has to be devoted. Like, let's do a CYB check. Let's do a CYB check.
My favorite part is that I no longer have to play a CYB, whatever new hero that we're testing. It's just like every time we're like, oh, this hero is cool. It's got a cool mechanic. We're really enjoying these cards. Like, oh, but does it play CYB? And then we go, all right, time to build a CYB version. Let's see how this looks. And then you have to like commit like 3 hours of games into like CYB games.
It's like when Uyon was like, hey guys, what about CYB Gravy? And we were like, okay, I guess you can build it. And then he plays it and it's like good. And then we're just like, oh, okay. So you have to spend more time on it.
It's like now we need to like validify.
Validate.
Thank you. Fuck no. Validate, guys. I'm coherent. I swear. I have a law degree, guys. I can speak English. Validate.
Law degree. Why do I didn't go into the profession? Like,
Okay, so
gotcha. I could need him to validate that statement.
okay.
So there's we are playing CYB gravy. Guys, I think there's something here. I'm a little bit scared. Please validify.
Because like you know you spend like 20 minutes building like a CYB gravy deck. You play like 40 minutes playing like a gravy CYB game, and then you're like you lose, but you're like that almost felt like a game. And then at that point you go, okay, guess we got to dedicate like another 2 hours to like tuning this deck, spreading it across matchups, and then at the end of it you're like, I just want to play gravy, not play CYB right now.
A few people pointed out what this may what you're referring to, the fact that like Scurv, recurring the CYB,
started recurring CYB,
and like there was something there, but it is one of those things as well. Like the games, just like even if you're trying to whip through them, sometimes they just inevitably take a long time because of what your strategy is CYB is.
Yeah,
and like I've definitely had some days where we get to lunch and like Chris G walks in. And he's like, oh, so how many games you played today? I'm like, this is my second game. So, yeah, I think, overall, it's one of those cards that maybe not necessarily always banned for, like, you don't always ban stuff for power reasons, but just feels reasons. So, I think it's cool. And I'm glad that that Everbloom is now out, going back to Florian, because we did mention that, like, there's another blue Earth Block 3 that comes in. And I think people can kind of see why you put Everbloom next to Germinate. You look at them and you're like, oh, like.
I mean, it's still good. You still get your Arcane Seas. It's still like banger card.
Everbloom is an insane card. Like it's awesome. But I think it makes some of the Florian games actually a lot more interesting now as well, because there's certain matchups where before, like you're playing the game out and it's like, oh, this is kind of interesting, and then like a few more minutes go by and you're like, it was interesting, but now I know I'm just losing to Germinate at the end of the game.
Yeah. It just sort of like nullified a lot of in-game sort of interesting positions, sort of interesting in-game strategies you could potentially run to Florian, but then it was just like, oh, you have Germinates. Oh, I guess I lose. And it was just like a little bit of like a not particularly difficult game plan to pull off while being very rewarding in just a few matchups where it came up. And when it came up, you just almost got a free one off that card.
The thing is, like, it's not even like at the end game you realize it's like they have 30 cards in deck, and you're just like, I don't think I can win this game.
Check the graveyard. Oh no.
No Germinates. Okay.
Yeah, and like similar thing for Scepter, like just having to do that mental math of like, are they going to go Scepter or Reaping Blade? Like now do I have to play like AB2 or even AB3 because of like the Channel Millennium Tree, or like, oh, my hand got stuck. Oh, all good. Just pitch it away to the Scepter. So and. I think for what it's worth, Florian is still like a very, very good deck. Like, very strong.
Some might say the bans might have made him better.
I love that meme, man. That's an infamous one. Like, the bans made the deck better. Okay.
Nothing's funnier than like testing a deck for like a day, and then we like decide to change some cards or ban some cards, and then we're like, cool. Oh, the deck's got better because of the bans.
So it's still like a very strong deck going into national season, but I think it ideally will help to open up that field a little bit and see a few different decks have their opportunity to shine, which would be very, very cool. But yeah, anyway, it'll be really cool to see how the Nats season, how the meta evolves over time. I mean, a number of heroes very close to hitting Living Legend, like OG, Dash, Azalea, Nu, maybe a couple others within range as well. And yeah, just to see how that shakes things up. And all leading into like Pro Tour Singapore, which is like July sometime, like mid-July-ish, I'm pretty sure. And that's going to be awesome to see how like the best minds in the game, what they're going to bring to the table. I'm excited to see what teams form, how they approach draft, how they approach all the new archetypes and like the new heroes and stuff like that. It's going to be really, really cool. But that's the Pro Tour. But you know what event I'm actually more excited for?
Which one?
It's World Tour Auckland, because you get to see me and Anu Young in the
I'll be there too.
In the booth. We're going to be doing some commentary.
It's going to be fun.
Along with a couple of others. I think Carol's going to be there. Let's focus on me and you. But what I'm pretty hyped about is like the return of like Welcome to Wraith and Arcane Rising. And like as James said as well, like day one, Welcome to Wraith Unlimited for the first calling. And I feel that's one of these like brutal like golf style cuts where you'd like want to make day two, because you do sealed unlimited day one and then you get to draft alpha on day two.
Can you imagine hitting a cold foil heart on like your draft?
Or like you lose your Widonin and then your opponent opens their first pack, they're like, oh, cold foil heart.
Let's go.
That's so sick. And you're just there like, what the? What about me? It isn't fair.
It's like I believe when you get to those that day 2 draft, when you're drafting, you have to say silent. You can only look at your own cards. But if you pull a call for a heart, you would just jump up in your seat and scream, right?
I reckon
and then you get DQ'd and you'd be like,
stupid sexy Scurv. I reckon that's when the judges will give you like a little bit of leeway with it. If you're like, you just yell up, you're like, let's go.
yeah, that's IP3. I don't care.
So you're disqualified. We're gonna have to confiscate you. But like just back-to-back callings, and as we just said, like getting to draft Welcome to Wraith Alpha, and that's the last time Alpha is like in the wild at any events, right? I'm pretty sure James did that. Like once this event's done, it's going back in the vault. It's locked away for
10th anniversary.
10th anniversary. So like, what's that, like 4 or 5 years away or something? So like
we just had the 5th anniversary. So, 4 or 5 years.
years.
Yeah, this.
quick math.
That's how numbers work. I was like, what?
Can anyone vilify that?
I
So, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty hyped for that as well, because Welcome to Wraith, I remember playing back in the day, Welcome to Wraith Sealed and Draft, and it's actually a really fun format. It's really cool. Probably the one that, honestly, was a lot of time went into, because I know, like, James, Chris G, Jason C and stuff spent, like, years, I think, working on refining that set, and it shows. It's really, really fun to play. And same for Arcane Rising, and there's some absolute bangers you can get in Arcane Rising, because the battle-hardened... sorry, mixing this up. The battle-hardened is Arcane Rising first sealed, right?
Yeah.
So
don't even need the top 8 or anything. Don't even need to make day 2. You just get to play sealed Arcane Rising first.
oh, that sounds like your kind of event. Wait, so I just show up?
I just show up, guaranteed EV.
I just show up and I get to open the pack? Let's go.
Let's go.
And then, but of course, the second calling as part of that weekend is Classic Constructed, which is just awesome. You know, Classic Constructed, not ashamed to say, one of my favorite formats. You know, it's classic and everything. But that's going to be super hype as well. And I'm just like really excited for that. Like, you know, we're all from New Zealand, we're all like huge stuff, like just having that event, those events in our hometown. Like 2 callings on the same weekend and a battle hardened with like all this like hype stuff just being there. So I'm really hoping to see a lot of like the Kiwi and Australian community turn up, and of course all the overseas players.
Sure. And I always get asked, Jason, are you going to be at this event? Are you going to go to, you know?
Nobody asks you that. Actually,
are you going to fly to Pro Tour Singapore?
All my friends are asking me, bro, they're begging me to come.
Begging me. Like, are you going to be at Worlds? Are you going to be at Barcelona? I'm like, no. But like here, you know, it's actually convenient. And I think a lot of the devs, if not all, will...
I feel like a whole bunch of the devs are going to show up.
We'll be playing side events. We'll be probably doing some special event.
And there's also, for I think the first time as well, there's actually going to be a creative panel with
oh, that's sick.
Sam Yang and MJ.
Yeah, the
so,
OGs.
yeah, like if you're someone who's interested in like the art and creative side of the game, which I know tons of people are. Like I always see when I'm at these events, like the artist booth, always massive lines like, these are the 2 people you want to talk to, right? Like, so that's super sick as well. I think it's just going to be a sick weekend. Like, I'm really hyped. You know, all my friends always ask me if I'm going to these events. I think what actually happens is Jason's just messaging me like, oh, hey guys, anyone keen to see me? They're like, yeah, sure, bro.
Wait, can we get back on this Validify train?
Can we make fun of Uyoga's? But it's going to be a sick weekend, and you know, I'm just going to encourage people to get your tickets now, because as we've seen with like stuff like World Premieres, big Pro Tour calling side events and everything like this, these events do sell out, and you don't want to be one of those people being like, I didn't think it would sell out, and now I'm mad that there weren't tickets. Like, like honestly, get out there, grab your tickets. It's going to be awesome. Like, welcome to Race First did. Come on.
Pretty good. Got to make day 2.
Got to make day 2. You know, or if you're more of an Uyo, the Battle Hardened's always there. So
Battle Hardened is always there.
Okay, I feel we're probably just rambling at this point.
On the on the limited, it's slightly different. It's 30 card limit for Welcome to Wraith.
Oh, they're switching it up.
Yeah.
Oh, so is that locked actually?
Apparently, yeah. It's a 30 card for Welcome to Wraith
and Arcane Rising.
And Arcane Rising, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if that changes how you play it. This is before my time.
It's a huge difference.
That's really interesting, because Arcane Rising, like I remember this was early on. It wasn't a lot of practice, but Actually made the top 8 of a
Yeah, okay.
sealed battle hardened Arcane Rising
Okay, buddy.
back in the day.
What did you say?
I played Viserai and did the old school Viserai pile strat, where you take all your playable cards, put it into a big pile, and just hope for the best. That was sick. Made it through the top 8, played Azalea, made the final, got smashed, and moved right on. But yeah. Anyway, I feel, there's no Brian here to control us, so things have just gone a bit pear-shaped. We're rambling. We've probably gone on for way too long. So,
All right,
producer Alex,
what's your favorite card from High Seas before? We'll wrap it up with that.
Oh, what's my favorite card from High Seas?
Ooh,
Okay, I need to
not so fast. That is the best flavor card for me because you actually say the name.
I agree.
and you get to like pause.
Yeah, like wait.
wait,
They're like pop gold draw.
wait, hold on,
Hold on, not so fast.
When you're playing Scurv, you just get to like they can't God. You're like resolves.
I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Man,
What is my favorite card? Jeez, that's actually like a really good question. I might go for the boring one, but like the true one, the Conqueror of the High Seas. Because Conqueror is just like because then, if you're like me, you can talk yourself into playing like the pirate version of the era, like Pirate Marlin, Conqueror, Pirate Puffin, Conqueror of the High Seas. But that card also, was an interesting one in Div. Went through a couple of things, but definitely Conqueror. I just love that card. It's awesome.
I think I have a very, very niche pick. I think it's Shelly.
Oh my god.
All throughout Div pipeline, we're like drafting Gravy. Nobody wants Shelly, and I'm just like, Shelly's so good, guys. It's 4. It has 5 health. It can tank a hit. So Shelly, get out there, draft your Shellys.
That's gonna be-
It's slept on.
That was definitely a
good card.
contentious one, like how you rate the allies, and
Yeah.
I will be curious to see if Young is born out to be correct, because he is definitely a bit of a Shelly supporter. Me, not so much. I've been passing that one.
It was so
quite
free,
late.
guys. Those Div drafts, so free. Second to last pick. Oh, Shelly, nice. Would have first picked that, but it just
Yeah,
don't know.
I had 3 Shellys, and I had 1 lost free Shelly in my deck. So yeah, we'll get out there and play some high seas drafts. See if you can validify Shelly. And
Please, guys, please win with Shellys.
anyway, that's it from us. I mean, Alex has got a tough editing job in front of him. But, we'll catch you all next time.